Speaking of wonderful guests, I am joined right now by the great Erin Hawley, Senior Counsel and Vice President of the Center for Life and Regulatory Practice at one of my favorite groups in America, ADF, the Alliance Defending Freedom. Erin, thank you for coming on the show.
Thanks so much for having me. Great to be here.
So, Erin, the Democrats don't seem to be running on any issue. I don't mean that as just a cheap polemical attack. I mean, they are actively running away from any issue that you could bring up in the campaign. Kamala's being really mealy-mouthed on even her own record. She's saying, I have nothing to do with the Biden administration record. Biden is then coming out and saying, no, she actually owns the whole thing. She was practically the president for 3.5 years. And so it's this hot potato game of political issues, with one exception. Abortion. Abortion is the one issue that she is running on. She thinks this is going to push her over the finish line. And I'm old enough to remember the days when the Democrats ran for president on abortion being safe, legal, and rare. That used to be the hot potato issue that they really didn't want to address. Now the Democrats are going whole hog in. Where does the issue stand? What is the Kamala position on it? How does that track with American law and the American voting public? And how do we fix it?
So I think Kamala's position on abortion is extremely dangerous. Recently, she has touted the story of 2 Georgia women who tragically died and blamed it on the state's pro-life law. That's absolutely false. So what happened in Georgia is undeniably a tragedy. 2 young moms lost their life, but the cause of that loss of life was the abortion drug. It's called mifepristone. It has a black box warning from the FDA detailing the very conditions that took these women's lives, sepsis in one woman's case. And interestingly, in that case, her name's Amber Thurman. She went to the hospital and the doctors didn't give her DNC for whatever reason. But the reason was not Georgia's law. Georgia's law allowed those doctors to perform the necessary medical care for 2 reasons. Her twins were no longer alive, so the law didn't apply at all. And second, Georgia's law, like every law in the country, allows any medical procedure necessary to save a woman's life, even if that includes an abortion.
Okay, so this, Erin, not to cut you off, but for people who haven't tracked this, there's so much fake news out there.
Yes.
The claim is that this woman went to the hospital and she wasn't able to have her baby removed from her womb because of this anti-abortion law. And so what you're saying is, actually, there are 2 reasons why that argument doesn't hold up. The first being, anti-abortion laws don't obtain if the baby has already been killed. The woman took the abortion drug. The baby had been killed already. So the abortion law is completely irrelevant here. But then even further, even if the baby had still been alive and the baby posed a threat to the life of the mother, even in that case, the doctors would have been perfectly able to go in and remove the baby. I don't want to be too blunt about it, I guess, or too crude, but it just seems like the entire Kamala argument on this is a lie.
I think that's absolutely correct. And that's why it's so dangerous. Kamala, the news media, or the mainstream, I should say, are using these examples to scare women, to say that abortion is necessary. But the fact is, again, in every state, not just Georgia, but every state, any woman can access the life-saving care she needs. That's not prohibited in any state. There are exceptions for ectopic pregnancy, for miscarriages. One of my favorite examples is actually Planned Parenthood. So before the Dobbs decision was issued, Planned Parenthood had on their website the true statement that treatment for an ectopic pregnancy is not an abortion. That's true. Post-Dobbs, they removed that statement, and they and other pro-abortion advocates are scaring women, saying you're not going to be able to receive this necessary medical treatment. That's simply untrue. It's false, and it's really distorting this narrative. And it's quite frankly sad that it's coming from an office like the Vice President.
That is a politically really interesting fact that Planned Parenthood changed the line on this, because in the case of an ectopic pregnancy where it is not possible for the baby to to grow. The baby will die, rather quickly anyway, and this could pose a real threat to the health of the mother. It's not just some novel bioethical argument that ending the baby's life could be justified here. This actually goes all the way back to St. Thomas Aquinas, the principle of double effect. That it's not that any way of ending the baby's life, it would be morally justified, but there's the principle of double effect that when you are intending a good, namely saving the life of the mother, you are not intending any harm to the baby, that this would justify this kind of intervention. There's nothing really new or novel. There's no logical pretzels that are being twisted here or anything like that. Even Planned Parenthood agreed with us on this point until it became politically inconvenient.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And if you think about the pro-life doctors across the country, there are situations in which women's life are in danger. But in those situations, they do everything they can to save both children. And again, in many of these circumstances, we're talking about women and families who desperately want these children and are facing tragic circumstances. So the doctors do all they can to save both lives. But if the mother's life is in danger and the baby's not viable, then in that tragic circumstance, the laws don't forbid, no law forbids doctors from doing whatever's necessary to save that mom's life.